Hannah Miller had known since she was 16 that her father would sell her to the highest bidder. She was not pretty enough to attract a wealthy man, but she was strong enough to work a farm. The man who bought her would get a pair of hands, not a wife. She had made peace with it, or so she told herself. The letter came from a widower in Ohio, a man twice her age who needed someone to tend his house and raise his children. Her father accepted without asking her opinion. The stagecoach would arrive in 3 weeks, and Hannah would board it. She would leave the mountains she loved and never return. On the morning of the 3rd week, Hannah woke before dawn. She packed a small bag with bread, dried meat, and her mother's quilt. Then she walked out the back door and into the forest. She did not look back. Behind her, she heard her father's shouts. She did not stop. She climbed for hours, following trails she had known since childhood, heading for the high country where no one would find her. The trees grew thicker, the air grew colder, and the world grew quieter. She was not afraid. She had been afraid her whole life. Now she was just tired. She found the cave by accident, a dark opening in the rock face, hidden behind a curtain of pine branches. She crept inside, expecting to find nothing but shadows. Instead, she found him. A man, sitting against the wall, his beard long, his clothes ragged, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her freeze. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply watched her, and she watched him, and the silence stretched between them like a living thing. She should have run. Any sensible woman would have run, but something in his eyes held her there. He was not dangerous. He was something else. He was broken. "What is your name?" she asked. He did not answer. She sat down across from him, keeping her distance, and pulled out her bread. She broke it in half and pushed one piece toward him. He looked at it, then at her, then back at the bread. After a long moment, he took it. She stayed. She did not know why. She had nowhere else to go, and something about this silent man made her feel safe. She built a fire, gathered water from a stream, and talked to him as if he could hear her. She told him about her father, the widower, the stagecoach. He listened without moving. On the 3rd day, he spoke. "Elias," he said, and his voice was rough, unused. "My name is Elias," Hannah smiled, the first real smile she had smiled in years. "Hello, Elias. I am Hannah." He looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Something that might have been hope. He told her his story in pieces over days and weeks. He had been a trapper, had lost his wife and child to a fever, had wandered into the mountains to die. He had been here for 10 years, alone, waiting for the end. He had stopped speaking because there was no one to hear. Hannah did not pity him. She understood him. She had been alone in a crowded house her whole life, surrounded by people who saw her as a tool, not a person. They were the same, she and Elias. They had both been waiting for someone to see them. She did not try to leave the cave. She built a small shelter nearby, gathered food, and learned to survive. Elias taught her to set traps, to track animals, to read the weather. She taught him to laugh again, a rusty sound that made her heart ache. Slowly, they became something neither had expected. Her father's men found them in the 2nd month. 3 of them, armed, angry, sent to drag her back to the homestead. They stood at the mouth of the cave, demanding she come out. Hannah stepped forward, ready to face them. Then Elias stepped out of the shadows behind her. He was not the broken man she had found. He was something else. His shoulders were straight, his eyes were hard, and in his hands, he held a rifle. "She is not going anywhere," he said. The men looked at him, at the mountain man who had been a legend in these parts, and they hesitated. "She is my daughter," her father said, pushing through the men. "She belongs to me." Elias did not flinch. "She belongs to no one. She is a person, not a possession. And she has chosen to stay." Her father looked at Hannah, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes that made him step back. Defiance. The men left, muttering, threatening to return. Hannah stood at the cave mouth, watching them go, and felt something she had never felt before: freedom. Elias came up beside her, his rifle lowered, his hand brushing hers. "You could have gone with them," he said. She shook her head. "I am already home." They built a cabin together, not far from the cave, a place with windows that faced the sunrise. Elias carved a bed frame, and Hannah sewed curtains from her mother's quilt. The homesteaders who lived below heard stories of the mountain man and the woman who had tamed him. They did not understand. It was not about taming. It was about two people who had been broken by the world, who had found each other in the darkness, who had chosen to heal together. They did not need a preacher or a ceremony. They needed only the silence between them, the fire that kept them warm, the mountains that watched over them. On the night of their first year together, Hannah sat beside Elias on the porch of their cabin. The stars were bright, the air was cold, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called to its mate. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Staying here with me?" He turned, looked at her with eyes that had learned to see again. "I spent 10 years waiting to die," he said. "Then you walked into my cave, and I realized I had been waiting to live." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The mountains rose around them, dark and eternal. And in the cabin that they had built together, two people who had been lost finally found their way home.